Most gardeners think weeds are the enemy, but here is the truth nobody tells you. Weeds are not winning because they are strong. They are winning because we leave them the perfect empty spaces to move into. Every patch of bare soil in your garden is an open invitation. What if instead of fighting that battle every single weekend, you filled those spaces with plants that naturally crowd weeds out, protect your soil, and make your whole garden look finished? Today I am showing you 9 ground covers that do exactly that. Stick around, because the last one on this list is the one most beginners overlook, and it might be the most useful of all. If you are new here, welcome. This channel is all about helping you build a beautiful, healthy garden using smart plant choices, practical tips, and simple ideas that make gardening easier instead of harder. If you like discovering ways to grow a garden you can actually be proud of, consider subscribing, and don't forget to turn on the notification button, because there is a lot more gardening inspiration coming your way. Before we get into the list, let me ask you something. What is the one garden task you wish you never had to do again? For a lot of people, it is weeding. Let us know in the comments, because by the end of this video, you might have a real answer to that problem. Here is something most people never think about. Weeds are not actually invading your garden, they are simply filling a vacancy. Bare soil is unstable ground, and nature always rushes to cover it with something. If you do not choose what grows there, a weed will choose for you. The good news is that ground cover plants can beat weeds to the punch. They spread low and thick, they shade out weed seedlings before they ever get started, and they do it while looking better than mulch ever could. Ground covers do not eliminate every single weed forever, and no plant can promise that, but they dramatically reduce the opportunities weeds have to take hold. Let us get into the plants that make this possible. Ground cover number 9, dead nettle, also known as lamium. The effect it creates is what I like to call the glowing shade carpet effect. If you have a shady corner of your yard that never seems to grow anything nice, this is often the plant that changes everything. Dead nettle has heart-shaped leaves marked with silver, and in spring it produces small hooded flowers in pink, purple, or white. Most weeds struggle in deep shade, but dead nettle thrives there, which means it can claim that difficult space before weeds even get a chance. This plant spreads by low, trailing stems that root as they go, quickly knitting together a dense mat. That mat blocks sunlight from reaching the soil, and without sunlight, weed seeds simply cannot germinate. Many people remove weeds repeatedly from shady beds when a plant like this could prevent the problem in the first place. Plant dead nettle under trees, along shaded fences, or in that dim side yard nothing else wants to grow in. It prefers partial to full shade, average well-draining soil, and moderate water until established. Maintenance is low once it settles in. The most common mistake is planting it in full sun, where the leaves can scorch. This one is very beginner-friendly, and a great starting point if you have a shade problem you have never been able to solve. Ground cover number 8, sweet woodruff. The effect it creates is the woodland floor effect. Sweet woodruff gives your garden that soft, storybook woodland look, with whorls of bright green leaves and tiny white star-shaped flowers in late spring. It is one of the best choices for underneath trees and shrubs, where grass refuses to grow and weeds usually take over instead. This plant forms a tight, low mat that spreads steadily through rhizomes. Because it grows so densely, it leaves almost no open soil for weed seeds to land on and take root. Gardeners love it because it solves 2 problems at once. It fills in awkward shaded areas, and it adds a delicate, fragrant texture that few other ground covers can match. Sweet woodruff prefers partial to full shade and moist, humus-rich soil. Give it consistent moisture, especially the first season, and after that, it becomes wonderfully low maintenance. A common mistake is planting it in dry, sunny spots, where it will struggle and thin out, leaving gaps that weeds happily fill. Keep it in the shade it loves, and it will reward you with reliable coverage year after year. This is a great beginner-friendly option for tricky shaded corners. Ground cover number 7. Ajuga, also called bugleweed. The effect it creates is the rich color carpet effect. Ajuga brings something most ground covers cannot, which is dramatic foliage color. Depending on the variety, you get deep bronze, burgundy, or nearly black leaves, topped in spring, with spikes of blue or purple flowers. This turns a plain, weed-prone bed into a design feature. But this next plant solves a problem most gardeners ignore, which is the tiny gaps at the edges of pathways and borders where weeds always seem to sneak in. Ajuga spreads through stolons, low runners that root along the ground, and it fills those edge spaces so completely that weeds have nowhere left to establish. Its dense rosettes of leaves overlap like shingles, blocking light from the soil beneath. Plant Ajuga along borders, under trees, or as a lawn alternative in problem areas. It tolerates sun to shade, though foliage color is often richest in a bit of morning sun. It prefers well-draining soil and moderate water. Maintenance is low, but here is a mistake to avoid. Ajuga can spread aggressively in ideal conditions, so give it a defined edge or border so it stays where you want it. It is beginner-friendly, but plant it with intention rather than letting it wander unchecked. Ground cover number 6. Creeping Jenny. The effect it creates is the golden waterfall effect. Creeping Jenny is one of the fastest ways to turn a boring slope, wall, or container edge into something people stop and photograph. Its round, chartreuse leaves trail and cascade, catching light in a way that instantly brightens a garden bed. Here is a surprising gardening fact. Creeping Jenny roots at every leaf node it touches, which means as it spreads across the soil, it is constantly anchoring itself and thickening its coverage. That thick, low mat leaves almost no exposed soil, which is exactly where weeds usually get their start. Gardeners love it because it does double duty, solving a bare spot problem while adding vibrant color that most ground covers cannot match. Plant Creeping Jenny along the edges of paths, on slopes to help control erosion, or spilling out of containers. It grows in full sun to partial shade and prefers consistently moist soil. It is not particularly drought tolerant, so regular water matters, especially in hot weather. The common mistake here is treating it like a low-maintenance drought plant, when really, it wants moisture to perform its best. In the right spot, it needs very little upkeep beyond an occasional trim to keep it in bounds. This one is beginner-friendly and incredibly rewarding for how little effort it asks in return. Ground cover number 5. Liriope, sometimes called lily turf. The effect it creates is the tidy border effect. If your garden never quite looks finished, Liriope might be the missing piece. It forms neat, grass-like clumps topped with spikes of purple or white flowers in late summer, and it holds its shape beautifully along paths, driveways, and garden edges. Liriope spreads slowly by rhizomes, forming dense clumps that knit together over time into a nearly solid border. Because the clumps grow so tightly packed, there is very little bare soil left for weeds to exploit. This is one of the reasons professional landscapers use it so often. It creates that clean, intentional look while quietly doing weed control work in the background. Plant Liriope along walkways, as edging, or in mass plantings where you want a defined line. It tolerates full sun to fairly deep shade, which makes it flexible across different parts of a yard, and it is quite drought tolerant once established. Maintenance is low, mostly just an annual trim in early spring to remove old foliage before new growth begins. The most common mistake is cutting it back too early or too hard, which can stress the plant. Liriope is beginner-friendly and especially useful if you want your landscaping to look professionally finished without professional maintenance. Ground cover number 4, creeping phlox. The effect it creates is the spring flower flood effect. For a few weeks each spring, creeping phlox turns hillsides, rock gardens, and border edges into sheets of solid color. It is one of the most visually dramatic ground covers you can plant, and that beauty is not just for show, it is doing real work underneath. Creeping phlox forms a dense, needle-like mat that stays low to the ground year-round, even after the flowers fade. That mat is thick enough to physically block weed seedlings from pushing through, and because it hugs slopes and uneven ground so well, it is especially useful in spots that are awkward to weed by hand anyway. Gardeners love it because it solves the problem of bare, sloped soil that is both weed-prone and difficult to maintain. Plant creeping phlox on slopes, in rock gardens, or cascading over retaining walls. It prefers full sun and well-draining soil, and once established, it is quite drought-tolerant. The most common mistake is planting it in soil that stays wet, which can lead to root problems. A light trim after flowering keeps it dense and encourages fuller growth the following year. This is a beginner-friendly choice, especially for anyone dealing with a sunny slope that is a pain to mow or weed. Ground cover number 3, sedum, also known as stone crop. The effect it creates is the textured succulent tapestry effect. Sedum brings texture and toughness that few other plants can offer. With fleshy, succulent leaves in shades of green, blue, or burgundy, it creates a tapestry-like appearance that looks equally at home in a modern landscape or a cottage garden. Here is a useful shortcut. Because sedum stores water in its leaves, it can dominate poor, dry soil, where most weeds and most other plants struggle to survive. Its low, spreading growth habit forms a thick mat that shades the soil surface, and its toughness means it can outcompete weeds in the exact tough conditions where weeds usually have the advantage. Sedum is ideal for hot, sunny spots, rock gardens, and areas with poor or sandy soil. It needs full sun and sharp drainage, and it is remarkably drought-tolerant, needing very little supplemental water once established. Maintenance is low. The biggest mistake gardeners make is overwatering it or planting it in heavy clay that holds moisture, which can cause rot. Give it sun and drainage, and it will quietly take care of itself. This is one of the most beginner-friendly plants on this list, especially for anyone who tends to forget to water. Ground cover number 2, creeping thyme. The effect it creates is the fragrant flowering carpet effect. Creeping thyme might be the most charming ground cover on this entire list. It forms a low, dense carpet of tiny aromatic leaves, covered in early summer, with a haze of small purple flowers that bees absolutely love. This plant spreads by rooting stems that hug the ground so tightly that weeds have almost no room to establish between them. Because the mat is so dense and so low, it also tolerates light foot traffic, which makes it a favorite for planting between stepping stones and along garden paths. Gardeners love it because it solves the ugly gap problem, those awkward spaces between pavers where weeds always seem to appear first. Plant creeping thyme between stepping stones, along path edges, or as a small-scale lawn alternative. It needs full sun and well-draining soil, and it is highly drought-tolerant once established. Maintenance is minimal, mostly an occasional light trim after flowering. The common mistake is planting it in shade or in soil that stays soggy, both of which cause it to thin out and open the door for weeds to return. Handled correctly, this is an excellent beginner-friendly choice that adds fragrance, color, and weed protection all at once. Ground cover 1, The final ground cover is one of the most impressive choices for creating a finished landscape look, and it is Vinca minor, also called periwinkle. The effect it creates is the glossy evergreen blanket effect. Vinca minor solves a problem that frustrates so many homeowners, which is bare, shaded ground that looks messy in every season. Unlike many ground covers that fade in winter, Vinca minor keeps its glossy, dark green leaves year-round, with small blue-violet flowers appearing in spring. It gives you coverage that actually looks intentional in every month of the year. This plant spreads through trailing stems that root wherever they touch soil, quickly forming a thick, interlocking blanket. That blanket is so complete that it leaves weeds almost nowhere to grow, which is why it has been used for generations to control erosion and weeds on difficult slopes and under trees. Here is an important honesty check. Vinca minor can spread aggressively, and in some regions it is considered invasive because it can escape garden beds and move into natural areas. Before planting it, check how it behaves in your specific climate, and always keep it contained with clear borders or edging. Used responsibly, it is one of the most effective weed-blocking plants available. It prefers partial to full shade, adapts to many soil types, and needs only moderate water once established. Maintenance is low, but do not skip the containment step. This plant is beginner-friendly in terms of care, but it does require a responsible gardener who plants it thoughtfully. So there you have it, 9 ground covers that can take the fight out of weeding and put the beauty back into your garden. From the shaded elegance of dead nettle and sweet woodruff, to the color and texture of Ajuga, creeping jenny and sedum, to the classic charm of Liriope, creeping Phlox, creeping Thyme, and Vinca minor, there is a ground cover here for almost every corner of your yard. Remember, none of these plants promise a completely weed-free garden forever. What they do is change the odds in your favor. Every square foot of soil they cover is a square foot a weed can no longer claim. Choose the right plant for your sun, soil, and climate. Give it time to establish, and you will spend far less time pulling weeds and far more time enjoying a garden that finally looks finished. If this video helped you see your garden differently, give it a like so more gardeners can find it, and subscribe for more practical, low-maintenance garden ideas. And I would still love to know, what is the one garden task you are ready to retire for good? Tell me in the comments below. I will see you in the next video.